Hello, this video lecture is part 3 of section 5.4, Factoring by Grouping and Special Forms. Our objective for this video lecture is to factor the difference of two squares and factor the sum or difference of two cubes. Our first slide here shows us the formula for the difference of two squares. So if we let u and v be either real numbers, variables, or algebraic expressions, then the expression u squared minus v squared can be factored given this formula. We have u plus v in the first binomial and u minus v in the second binomial. So let's take a look at using this formula. So here we have two questions. Our first question is x squared minus 16. And let's try to remember our formula. Remember, it's u squared minus v squared equals u minus v times u plus v. So in this case, our first term, the u squared, is x squared. So if u squared equals x squared, then u has to just equal x. And our v in this case, our v squared, equals 16. So v has to be the square root of 16, which is going to be 4. So x squared minus 16 is going to factor as u minus v, or x minus 4, times u plus v, x plus 4. So slightly more difficult with the second one. We have 81 x squared minus 36 y squared. So our u squared in this case, u squared is going to equal 81x squared. So we take the square root of both sides. We get that u is the square root of 81. And so 9 times 9 is 81. So we take the square root of the number and the square root of the variable. And the square root of x squared is going to give us 9 times x. Our second part, v squared, is 36 y squared. So we take the square root of the number, the square root of 36 is 6, and we take the square root of the variable, which is y. So then we write this as 9 times x minus 6 times y times 9 times x plus 6 times y. And here you can see our final answers. Example 2 is something that we don't see very often, but this is a little bit more complex. This is still the difference of two squares, because we can see if this thing was just one piece, we have that piece squared minus 16. So in this case, our u squared actually equals the binomial x minus 1 squared, and our v squared equals 16. So u actually equals the binomial itself, x minus 1, and v equals 4. So our final answer in this case is going to look a little funny. We have x minus 1 minus 4 times x minus 1 plus 4. So if we want to simplify this a little bit, we could say that this is x minus 5 times x plus 3. This slide shows us the formulas for the sum or difference of two cubes. So when we have a positive sign between the two cubes, we end up with different signs for the binomial and the first part of the trinomial. So remember, plus between the cubes, plus in the binomial. And these signs have to be different. If we have a minus sign between the two terms, then we end up with a minus in the binomial, and these two signs also still have to be different. The other thing you'll notice here is that the final symbol is always a plus sign. Let's take a look at a couple examples. In our first example, we have 8t to the third minus 27. Since this symbol between our cube terms is a negative sign, I know that I'm going to have a negative sign in the binomial, and I'm going to have a plus and a plus in the trinomial. So the important piece to realize here is, what can I multiply by itself 3 times to get 8t to the third? So 8 can be written as 2 times 2 times 2 times t times t times t. So you can see here that the 2 is written 3 times and the t is written 3 times. So 8t to the third is the same thing as 2t in parentheses to the third. So our u here is going to equal 2t. Now remember, the other thing that we need is u squared. So u squared is going to be 2 squared, which is 4, t squared. So remember, our u term, 2t, goes into the binomial, and the front part of the trinomial is going to be u squared, or 4t squared. 27 can be written as 3 times 3 times 3. So 27 we can write as 3 to the third power. So v is going to equal 3, and v squared is going to equal 9. So v squared is our final term, and in this case v goes here. And the final piece to remember is we need, in the middle, we need u times v. So we need 2 times t times 3. 2 times 3 is 6 times t. So here we have built our final answer. Our second example has a plus sign in the middle, so we know that our binomial is going to have a plus sign, and our trinomial is going to be minus plus. M to the third, our first term, well, that one's a little bit easier because we know that u is just going to be m, and u squared is going to be m squared. 8n to the third, well, that's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times n times n times n. So v is going to be 2 times n, and v squared is going to equal 4n squared. So remember, our binomial is u plus v. So we have m plus 2n. Our first term is always u squared, so this is going to be m squared. Our last term is always going to be v squared, so we have 4n squared. The middle term is the one that gets a little bit tough. This is u times v. So we have m times 2n. So this is going to be 2 times n times m. And that's our final answer. And that concludes Part 3 of Section 5.4, Factoring by Grouping and Special Forms.